I will keep an eye on the waiting room while we're starting. So there's Anne. Great. So welcome, everybody. It's great to see you. It's our last meeting of the year, and what a year it's been. So, oops, I keep having to admit more people. So before, as we traditionally start, we usually go around and have folks introduce themselves and just say where you're situated in time and space, and where you are, just where you're physically at. It's a way of connecting to each other. We have folks that have been on multiple calls, and we have folks we haven't seen in quite a while, and people that are new to our group altogether. So good to be with you. And for this portion, Peter usually leads us. So I'm going to turn it over to Peter.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. And so I'll start with myself. I'm Peter Gable. I'm in San Francisco, California. I'm sitting like hunched into the corner of my bedroom, and I realized that people are supposed to like have backgrounds now if you're on video, and they always feature one book or another. And I was just looking, well, what book could I put up? First thing I saw was the Anxiety and Phobia Workbook. That was one period of my life. So anyway, fortunately not a current one. Okay, that's where I am. Bruce Peterson.
I'm Bruce Peterson. I'm a retired judge in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I'm in my home office. And I don't have anxiety of the workplace, but I've left those behind.
And Blanca Leon.
Hi, I'm in the UK. I'm just outside of London. Nice to see everyone.
Great to see you. And Yudong Zhu.
Hi, everyone. I'm a student of public policy at University of Maryland. My name is Yudong, or Kagu. Both names work for me. Behind me is basically snowing right now. I thought it's a pretty good background,
Yeah.
Nature.
Great, thanks so much. Marjorie Silver.
Hello. Yep. Okay. Hi. I'm sitting in our living space in East Hampton, on the east end of Long Island, where we've been holed up for. We've been holed up since. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can.
All right. Stu is having trouble. And there's a recording that someone's trying to steal my social security number. I hate
Oh
that.
my God.
No, it's not true. Don't fall for it if they call you. I'm sorry. So yeah, I'm out here looking at my bird feeder and the blue jays and the woodpeckers and the little birds they scare away. And I am a faculty member at Touro Law Center on Long Island, and the editor of the book inspired by PISLAP, Transforming, I always get the name wrong, Transforming Justice Lawyers and the Practice of Law.
Thank you, Marjorie. Ken Alderstein.
Hi, Ken Haldenstein, White Plains, New York. I haven't been here in a while. It's great to see everyone. Thank you.
Wonderful. Is it Yue Ang?
Hello, Yue from Oxford. Yeah, I'm at home, staying safe and staying warm.
Great to have you. Well, John, you can say where you are and then we'll come back to you. Oh, but you're muted.
I'm in Point Reyes Station, California, which is about an hour northwest of the Golden Gate Bridge.
Okay, we'll come back to you, John. Good to see you. Stu Webb.
Beautiful day in Minneapolis. Wonderful to be here. Saw a beautiful conference, UK conference on the weekend called The Primacy of Consciousness. Fantastic. Marjorie Wolbcott, our major speaker, she beautiful book called The Infinite Awareness. Check it out. Marjorie Wolacott, W-O-L-A-C-O-T-T. Over and out. Love you.
Thank you, Stu. And Kim Wright, so good to see you.
Let me unmute myself. Hi, I'm Kim Wright. I happen to be in Florida right now, and I'm a big fan of John Montgomery's. And And it's good to see so many familiar faces.
Welcome. Elaine Quinn.
Oh, I'm not muted. Hello, everyone. I'm here in dark and cold Ireland, but cozy in my house, and very happy to be here as always.
Great to see you, Elaine. Perry Sedman.
Yes, I am in beautiful Miami Beach. It is 81 degrees outside and the sun is shining. And I'm reading a book called Anxiety in the Home Place, which is a sequel to Peter's book.
All right, Perry, thanks. Dr. Param, so good to see you in India.
Yes.
Please do say where
Yes.
you are.
Yeah, this is Dr. Param teaching in Gujarat, western part of India. It's very cold here. Of course, not like the US cold, but relatively cold. We are not used to this cold, and I was not keeping well for a long time. So I'm slowly picking up, and today it is this Spice Lab meeting that made me get up and then alive and then start my life this week onwards. So I'm very happy to be a part of all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Rand, hi.
Hi, I'm Rand Rosenblatt. I'm in Philadelphia, where we're waiting for our first snowstorm of the year.
Great. Great to see you, Rand. Anne.
Hi, I'm in the same house as Rand Rosenblatt, and I can report because I can see out my window that the snowstorm has in fact started. And I teach at Rutgers Law School and am really looking forward to this call.
Thanks, Anne. Good to see you. Ian T. And now I don't have all the people's pictures here, so I'll just read your name. Ian T.
Hey, Peter. Hey, everyone. I'm Peter's assistant, Ian. He invited me to come on, listen in on this call. I'm from the Bay Area as well.
Good to see you, Ian.
You too.
Of course, it's you. Una.
Hi, I'm Una Tapper. I'm in Long Island, New York, and this is my first time participating in this meeting.
Wonderful to have you. Thank you. And Maliat.
Hi, my name is Molly. I just finished my first trimester of law school in San Diego, so this is my first time participating, so nice to meet everybody.
Great to see you. Make sure we have your email in the chat so we know how to put you on our list then. Julian.
Good evening, everybody. So this is Julian from Devon, which is God's country. And yeah, this is my first event. So I know Kim and I know Elaine, and I've seen some of your stuff, Peter. So yeah, it's wonderful to be connected with everybody, and yeah, looking forward to it. So thanks.
Great, wonderful, and welcome, welcome. And let's see. I'm waiting for this one chat to die down so I can't actually see either of the bottom names. So if you can see yourself, please introduce yourself by
Victoria Chase, Peter.
Okay, I just saw Robin Morris, so I will come to Victoria if I see her.
And Acadia Walters as well.
All right, I see everybody now. Robin.
Hi, I'm Robin. I'm in Oakland, California. I used to have a lot of workplace anxiety. I used to work in New York, and then I quit my law firm job to like tend to my spirit and backpack for years. So I don't know how I found this group. This is my first meeting, maybe on Google or something. So I was really curious to see what this is about.
Great. Let's be sure, as I say, to put your email in the chat line if you're willing, so we can put you on our list. Thanks so much. Acadia.
Hi, this is actually Victoria Chase. Acadia is my daughter, but for whatever reason, I prop up as her when I'm on the phone. So I'm in Haddonfield, New Jersey right now. I work at Rutgers Law with Ann Friedman, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Great. Welcome. Welcome. And Sylvia, good to see you.
Except we can't see her.
I'm mute here.
Yeah, there you are. Yes, hi.
Now you're muted.
Unmute, yeah, okay. All right, I'll start over again. I'm Sylvia Clute. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. I've been a member of this group for a while, don't always get to join these meetings. I'm sort of multitasking this morning or this afternoon, but I definitely wanted to join at least for part of it.
Great to see you. Is that
Thank you.
everybody? Good to see you, Sylvia. Is that
Thank you.
everybody? Okay, so welcome to all of you to the call. Maybe I'll just say a sentence since there are a number of newcomers, that PISLAP, the Project for Integrating Spirituality, Law, and Politics, is about helping to build a legal culture that fosters human connection, a loving, caring stance toward one another, and as a contrast to the existing legal system, which emphasizes individualism, separation, and self-interest. So we are trying to help imagine the legal system of the future in the present and to start to make it happen during our lifetime. Nanette, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Peter. Well, beautifully done. So hello, everyone. I introduced myself as well. I'm Nanette Shore, and I'm based here in New York City, and I'm sitting at my kitchen table and looking out the window and also anticipating the same snowstorm that others have mentioned, and very, very happy to welcome new folks as well as faces that we've had with us before. Our community is really growing, and as Marjorie put in the chat, on an international basis. So we're very happy today to have John with us to speak to us today. This is part of a series that has grown out of the recent issue published by The Conscious Lawyer. Elaine Quinn is the editor of The Conscious Lawyer, and PISLAP and The Conscious Lawyer collaborated on this issue. It's the first of what we hope will be other issues that we will be collaborating on together. And John was an author in the issue, and he's going to be speaking with us today regarding issues connected to law and conscious business. So I can't really capture what John's going to speak about, so I will just turn it over to John, and we will have some time after John speaks for dialogue. So over to you, John.
Great. Well, hello, everybody. It's great to be here. And I thought, since we're a small group, I'll just have a conversation with you all and start with the punchline. Since this is the project for integrating spirituality, law, and politics, I'll share where I've ended up, in my life journey through the law, and in particular corporate law. And what I've concluded is that our entire civilization needs to be reconstituted so that it's based on the principle of two principles. One is that we're one human family. We share the same DNA, and we've got to take care of each other. We got to love each other. That's principle number one. And principle number two is that our human family shares the same common planetary home, and we've got to love our home. We got to take care of our planet. So we've got to base our civilization and its legal system on the principle of love, that we've got to love each other and we've got to love our planet. And there is no them. It's not us versus them. It's only us, and there's no over there. It's only here. We've got a global village, one human family, one shared common planetary home, and we ultimately have to reconstitute our legal systems based on those principles. So that's where I ended up. Now, Ken said that he's from White Plains, which is not far from where I grew up. I grew up in Katona, New York. And my journey to this call started as a kid because I grew up in a bipolar household, in the sense that my mom was an ardent conservationist, a liberal, a tutor of kids with learning disabilities, a lover of wildlife and nature, and instilled in me a very strong love for the natural world. My father, on the other hand, lived in the real world, which was the world of business. And, you know, that was the only reality. That was the real world. My dad started one of the first venture capital financed companies in America, Cooper Laboratories, in 1958. It was one of the first portfolio companies of American Research and Development, which was, many say, the first venture capital firm in the States. And my dad built this company into a Fortune 500 company over a 30-year career by buying and selling somewhere between 120 and 130 businesses. And, you know, I was indoctrinated with the principles of shareholder capitalism, and it was drummed into my psyche that, you know, that was the only reality. And as a teenager, intuitively, I knew that something was horribly missing from the real world. And I avoided the real world like the plague. And as an undergraduate, I was a studio art major. I got a degree in painting and drawing. And as I was working my way through school, I had several family members that had severe mental illnesses. And any of you who have hung out with artists know that you know, we live in the field of infinite possibilities, and we're kind of out there. And since anxiety is kind of a theme of this call, I felt great existential anxiety with family members having severe difficulties and being in an art department with people that were pretty far out there. So as kind of a defensive move, I applied to MFA programs to get a teaching credential and won law school. And my advisor, for some reason, wouldn't write me a recommendation for the MFA programs that I wanted to apply to. So I didn't get in. And I got into the one law school that I applied to and ended up being a very reluctant lawyer. I found the first semester of law school to be very stultifying, and I wanted to quit after the first semester. And the dean basically said, look, you can quit, but if you ever decide to go back to law school, you'll have to repeat the first semester because you only get credit for it if you complete the full year. So I hung in there. Anyway, long story short, I followed my intuition and I ended up back in Silicon Valley. I ended up working with startup companies, which for somebody who's creative was one of the more creative niches in the legal profession around, because in my 30-year career in Silicon Valley, I represented 1,000 or so startups, founding teams from all over the world, different technologies. You know, every startup company is a comedy, a tragedy, a short story, a play, a serial. So I had infinite variety, and you know, it made the tedious practice of technical corporate law bearable, just because I met so many interesting people. But about halfway through my career, I started having a lot of cognitive dissonance. As a corporate lawyer, I spent most of my career, or a lot of my career, in the boardroom. I represented somewhere between 20 and 25 public companies and 1,000 or so startups. And a lot of them, I was the corporate secretary, so I'd go to the board meetings. And in the 90s, my semiconductor clients started moving their fabs from the United States, first to Taiwan, and then to the People's Republic of China. And I remember thinking at the time, what the hell are we doing? you know, this is a communist country. It's a state-run economy. We're eroding our tax base here. We're moving jobs and technology offshore, and we're employing people under labor conditions that are illegal in this country with environmental consequences that have been outlawed here. And often the client had to hire a consultant to bribe the Chinese government to keep, for example, electricity running to the factory in clear violation of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. And you know, I'd be sitting in the boardroom as corporate secretary, and I just kind of go, God, what are we doing? And everybody felt kind of uncomfortable, but they'd sort of shrug their shoulders and go, oh, well, you know, it's shareholder primacy. We have to maximize profit for shareholders, and Intel moved their fab over to China. And if we don't move our fab over there, then they're going to, you know, we're going to be out of business. So that led me to getting into the history of the corporation, because I started seeing as a startup company lawyer that corporations were collective life forms. And they lack a comprehensive conscience. The conscience function in a corporation is quite primitive. It's the fiduciary duties of directors flow to the stakeholders or to the stockholders, and there's no comprehensive conscience. It's a very primitive collective life form. So I started looking into, well, you know, how did the corporation end up lacking a conscience? You know, we're inheritors of the English common law in this country, as you all know, and you know, under the original English common law, the king was the external conscience of the corporation. There was an invisible conscience function built into the original corporate structure, because all corporations were chartered by the king. And if the corporation misbehaved, the king could revoke the charter, not review it, call the heads of the corporation back to London, throw them in the Tower of London, whatever. So the king served as the external conscience function of the corporation. And in our revolution, we got rid of the king, but the external conscience function devolved into our state legislatures. And up until 1811, if you wanted to incorporate a company in the United States, you had to get an act of legislature in your particular state. Well, New York changed that in 1811 when they combined limited liability and free incorporation, when any sociopath who can fog a mirror could then incorporate a corporation without going to the legislature. And up until 1811, if you invested in a corporation, it was treated like a partnership. So you were jointly and severally liable for the debts of the corporation. And you know, that invention, free incorporation and limited liability, basically sundered the corporation from its conscience. And you know, the conscience had been external and not really and really subliminal, not necessarily overt and express. But the consequence was we created these corporations that really are untethered from any kind of a conscience function. And so I started thinking, well, how do what if we bring a conscience function into the corporation? And I started working with some of the first social entrepreneurs in the early part of this century, and using the law of contract to tinker with charter provisions and bylaw provisions to, you know, add the equivalent of a conscience into the corporate architecture. And that led to me being introduced to one of the founders of B Lab, the progenitors of the Benefit Corporation and the Certified B Corporation assessment back in 2008. That led to an introduction to Bill Clark, who's considered by many to be the grandfather of the Benefit Corporation. I helped co-write the original white paper on the need and rationale for the benefit corporation. And my original thought was the benefit corporation, which requires the corporation to provide a material positive impact on society and the environment, and extends the fiduciary duties of the directors to all of the corporation stakeholders. I thought, if we do that, if we endow the corporation with a conscience, we'll fix the entire economic system, and that's the fix, and I can go on my merry way. I subsequently concluded that that was really not the case, and I naively thought that the benefit corporation would be the next big thing coming out of Silicon Valley, in the sense that, if you, the economic research shows that if you apply a multiple stakeholder model in business, if you embed your business with principles of sustainability, if you lead your business from the heart, you have advantages over conventional business. If you lead your business from the heart, you have about half the employee turnover, huge savings. Bob Eccles at Harvard, his research shows that if you embed principles of sustainability into your business, you'll have 5 points per year greater return to investors than a conventional business. And Raj Sisodia with Firms of Endearment has demonstrated that businesses that apply a multiple stakeholder model, beat the S&P 500 by, a factor of, I don't know, I think it's something like 14 over a period of 15 years. So since Silicon Valley is all about money and making gobs of money, I thought, hey, here's, we've reinvented everything else. Let's reinvent the corporation, and these guys will be all over this. They weren't, and they really had no interest in, at first, of adopting the sort of the triple bottom line approach to business. It's much easier just to be able to do business focusing on fiduciary duties to stockholders. My job as a director is to maximize stockholder value, to maximize profit for shareholders. And that's the mindset of prevailing business. And what I concluded was, we're really in a spiritual crisis here, because what I observed was that pretty much every director in all the companies that I represented was a really good person. They're kind to their spouses and children. They donate to charity. They volunteer in their communities. They're good people. They follow the golden rule. But once they got into the boardroom, the golden rule gets left at the door, and the rule of gold takes over. It's about maximizing profit for shareholders. And that realization is kind of what led me, it's really what led me to be here with this group, and to write articles for Elaine's wonderful magazine, is that the solution needs to be spiritual and legal. And if you make a legal fix like the benefit corporation, without changing the underlying guiding principles of civilization, you're not going to change the matrix. You're going to be stuck in the matrix. And what I've concluded is that we've got to change the matrix. And so my work has evolved from trying to convert as many traditional corporations into benefit corporations and being an advocate for the benefit corporation, into really identifying what are the guiding principles of our corporations, what are the guiding principles of our economic system, and what are the guiding principles of our civilization, and then what are the guiding principles of leadership. And what I learned from the benefit corporation experience is, if you're working on systems change, the you optimize your probability of success by identifying the smallest possible changes you need to make to a system to change the entire system. And with benefit corporations, we tweaked a few small provisions in the corporate code. We extended the fiduciary duties to all stakeholders of the corporation, including society and the environment. And we added a public purpose of creating a material positive impact on society and the environment. Those were two, basically, you could summarize the benefit corporation by 2 sentences in the statute. And with those 2 small changes, you begin to create corporations that are not prone to sociopathy, but are prone to altruistic behavior. So I've tried to really identify what are the sponsoring thoughts of our civilization, our economic system, our corporations, and our leadership. So I'll go through those briefly. And essentially, we're all living with the legacy of the doctrine of discovery. In the 14th and 15th century, the popes mediated disputes between the kings of Spain and Portugal over who owns the New World. And basically, the popes gave Portugal, Africa, and Brazil, and gave Spain the rest. And in the papal bulls articulating the settlement, the Catholic Church established the primacy of white male European Catholics, and so the doctrine of discovery became the legal justification for the European powers to basically colonize the entire world and exploit indigenous peoples, their lands and resources, all in the name of Christendom. And all of our major institutions carry an echo of that. And what is that in essence? It's a dominator, extractor, power over, fear-based modality. And we've got to change the sponsoring thoughts of that to from Earth is something that we can exploit. The dominant humans have the right to exploit the non-dominant ones. We got to change those sponsoring thoughts. We got to identify them wherever the vestiges are and eradicate them and replace them with the notion that we're one human family and we share one common planetary home, and we've got to take care of Mother Earth, and we got to take care of each other. And so that's that's at the macro level. Well, nested within our global civilization is its economic system. And the principal sponsoring thoughts of our global economic system are based on neoliberal economics, which come out of the Mont Pelerin Society in 1947. After World War II, Milton Friedman and a bunch of very smart people gathered in Switzerland to kind of cook up the post-World War II order. And the perception was it was the war-wasted West versus the centrally planned economies of the Soviet Union. And it was free market versus totalitarianism. And so the whole notion of the free market came about, and if you've ever challenged the neoliberal orthodoxy, you often get a very nasty response. You're labeled a communist, a socialist, unpatriotic, etc. And that's partly a legacy of the Cold War, because neoliberal economics was kind of conflated or part of the Cold War with the Soviet Union. And so there's a real charge often emotional charge that comes with challenging the sponsoring thoughts of neoliberal economics. And I think the best reformulation of neoliberal economics is in Kate Raworth's Donut Economics, where in chapter 2, she brilliantly and succinctly identifies the 11 sponsoring thoughts of neoliberal economics and suggests 11 replacements that would allow civilization to live within the limits of the biosphere and humanity to provide a basic standard of living to every human on the planet. And so I think that's on an economic system level, we need to change the sponsoring thoughts of the economic system. And who are the most powerful players in the economic system? Corporations. We've got corporations that really have no conscience other than the doctrine of shareholder primacy, where they exist solely to maximize profit for shareholders. And they really don't give a damn about society and the environment. It's all about maximizing profit. And our multinationals are even worse because they have largely transcended the nation state. So we've created these collective life forms like Google and Facebook, some of these companies that Amazon, they really owe allegiance to no sovereign, and they're multinational. They've transcended the nation state. They're engaged in a race to the bottom. They look to avail themselves of tax treaties and tax havens, and they engage in the international arbitrage of labor and environmental controls and all the rest of it. So they look for the least expensive labor, the least regulated environmental stuff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and we don't have an international regime to regulate these multinationals that have transcended the sovereignty of any individual nation state. And then the final area that I want to talk about is just leadership. Our predominant style of leadership is not empowering. It's dominator. It's power over, and it's fear-based. And the neuroscience, Paul Zak at the Claremont Graduate Institute has done research on this. And basically, it shows that when we humans, surprise, surprise, work in environments where we're loved and trusted, we're twice as productive, twice as happy, and we have job tenures that are twice as long. We have half the employee turnover. And so what we need to do is change, we need to train leaders that can courageously lead from the heart and create a world where that's based on love for each other and love for our planet. So I think that's kind of an overview or some summation of the article that I wrote in the last issue of The Conscious Lawyer. And I think I'll stop there. That was quite a stream of consciousness, and I gave you a lot of information, and I'd like to just open it up for questions, discussions, or however Nanette and Peter would like to proceed.
Great. Thank you so much, John. A lot of great food for thought there for sure. So I actually, maybe I'll just kick it off with a quick question. We always hear this notion that corporations are legally obligated to enhance the bottom line. But it was never clear to me that that's actually a legal obligation, or it's just a a supporting concept that people sort of have adopted as true. So I wondered what your interpretation of that is.
Well, you know, Lynn Stout, our deceased friend from Cornell, wrote about the myth of shareholder primacy, and her book and her work precipitated a response by Chief Justice Leo Strine of the Delaware Supreme Court, who gave Lynn the most kind and skillful public evisceration of her arguments that I've ever seen. He did it so elegantly and gently in the footnotes of a law review article, in which he basically made it clear that under Delaware law, shareholder primacy has essentially become the law. And the sole legitimate purpose of a Delaware corporation is to maximize stockholder welfare. And you can only take care of society and the environment and other stakeholders if it's directly related to the sole legitimate purpose of the corporation, which is to maximize stockholder welfare. So yes, there's been a debate as to whether that really is the law. Lynn Stout put together a valiant argument, but I think, you know, if I were going to choose sides, I would go with the Chief Justice of the Delaware Supreme Court over Professor Stout.
John. So folks, I'd like to open it up for people's questions, comments, reflections.
I have a question. This is Bruce Peterson. Thank you, John. That was really very interesting. I've experimented and gotten to know some people in benefit corporations who are operating on a small scale and doing really good things. I'm nervous about it ultimately giving boards of directors of international corporations even more power, in the sense that right now we know at least what they're obligated to do and we can deal with it.
Yep.
I don't particularly want, I guess, you know, these guys make all this money, then they start foundations and give it away. I guess they can do that anyway, but I don't want the board of directors deciding what's good in the world and then pouring their money into that. Do you have a thought about that?
Yeah. I don't know if you all are familiar with Professor Joel Bacon from the University of British Columbia. He wrote the Corporation back in, I don't know, 2002 or something, and he had a documentary film, the Corporation, came out in about 2003. And his conclusion was that, you know, if you did a psychological analysis of the corporation, you would conclude that it's a sociopath. And his new book is, I just got a copy of it and I'm about halfway through. I can't put it down. It's called The New Corporation, and he talks about how the corporate world wants to hide behind benefit corporations, B Corps, good corporations, ESG, et cetera, to get out of being regulated by us, the people. And he makes a really good case that there's a real danger that the corporate oligopoly will seize the mantle of benefit corporations, B Corps, ESG, et cetera, sustainability, and try to demonstrate that they can, like we in the legal profession can self-regulate with our codes of ethics and et cetera, that corporations should be left alone because they're now good and they can regulate themselves. And you know, Joel doesn't buy this at all. He basically is saying that the emperor has no clothes, that underneath all the rhetoric, the corporation is still a shareholder primacy based vehicle that is there to maximize profit for shareholders. And it will, to do so, it will engage in greenwashing or whatever, and use this as a way of getting rid of even more regulations so that they can, you know, just be left alone to maximize profit.
So what do you think?
Well, I think I think the benefit corporation is not the be all end all. And I remember, you know, almost immediately after we got the legislation passed in California, and I was feeling really excited, and I was still naively thinking that the benefit corporation would transform the entire global economic system, and we'd all of a sudden end up with corporations that had consciences, that were operating as responsible global citizens. And I ran into my friend David Hodgson, who is a big into the regenerative economy and regenerative agriculture and sort of the whole regenerative movement. And, you know, he basically said, well, you know, benefit corporations are good, but they don't go far enough. And, you know, I could feel the synapses in my brain just kind of realign. I was like, shit, he's right. It doesn't go far enough. And the way I see it is, you know, from a constructive developmental theory perspective, you know, if you bring in, you know, for example, spiral dynamics or the Wilberian model, you know, the prevailing corporate architecture is orange, expert achiever, and the benefit corporation moves it to green, where instead of being egocentric and self-centric, we're all about maximizing our own profit, and we don't care about anybody except our shareholders. The benefit corporation begins to move the corporation into green, where, okay, we care about society and the environment. We've got to provide a material positive impact on society and the environment, and we got to extend our fiduciary duties to all stakeholders. But that's not, you know, you know, where this ends. Where this ends is you want business entities that are operated by enlightened people that are operating from the principles that I outlined at the beginning, which is, you know, we've got to love each other. We've got to take care of each other. We're family, and we've got to take care of our home planet, and everything has to stem from there. And so I think ultimately you know, I don't know when it's going to happen, but the benefit corporation, I think, is just is an evolutionary step that gets us partially to where we need to be. And we the people need to reclaim our authority over the corporations, because corporations are chartered in the United States by secretaries of state. And who are the secretaries of state? They are servants of the people. We, the people, ultimately are giving corporations their power to be. And it's up to us, the people, to set the parameters and establish the rules of the game. And I think ultimately we need to change the rules of the game. And in neoliberal economics, Milton Friedman expected that corporations would have two guardrails. You want a free market with a couple of guardrails. There's the regulatory guardrail, and then there's the moral guardrail. And Milton Friedman assumed that the core values of the greatest generation that won World War II would prevail. And he wasn't anticipating that in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher would come along and throw out those values and elevate greed to a virtue. And, you know, so anyway, I think the corporation, the benefit corporation, will continue to evolve. We, the people, need to take our power back and really decide re-engineer the rules of the game so that the game produces the desired outcome. Are we taking care of each other, and are we taking care of our planet?
Thank you, John. Stu Webb had a question or comment. Stu, you're muted.
It seems to me, John, that we, the people, are like the corporations. We have to move the principles down lower. We don't follow the golden rule. We follow the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah.
And we need to do the golden rule, but that means we don't do it in our heads. We have to learn to do it in our hearts.
Yeah.
And so there's a shift that's going on in the world. There's a shift from our individual separation into a higher feeling of consciousness, just a change of beliefs.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. But if we don't make the change, we do have the fear and the love duality in all of us from our individual separate selves. And that's what creates, when we go to the corporation, the same thing happens. Unless we have that coherence of heart and mind that changes who we are. And this is the shift that's going on in the world. And what we hope there's going to be a tipping point at some point in that shift that's going to make it so that we don't have to do this on an individual basis, but right now we each have to do that to the best of our can.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Can I make a comment, Nana?
Yeah.
Sorry. Sure, Peter, and then Dr. Param after you.
Okay. Well, Stu, just to stay with that for a minute. So the shift has to be in our hearts. In order for it to be in our hearts, we have to have spiritual practices that help us overcome our fear and our conditioning to remain in this separate space that allows us to flow into the space of the other. You know, I was going to say in response to you, John, that one problem with changing the concepts or the thoughts that people have, no matter how positive, is that doesn't necessarily translate down to make people's willingness to make themselves vulnerable to other people. You know, my partner is a union organizer, and there are many corporations that claim to represent the family, want the corporation to represent the values of the family. The one thing they don't want is a union, because they don't want to actually risk creating a workplace community that has authority, not in terms of crude power, but moral participation and the whole of oneself in the workplace process, because they're afraid, I believe. And so I just say this means practices are needed that foster this kind of human connection, which is one reason we focus so much on restorative justice in PISLAP and on transformative mediation and experiences of being with others that overcome our fear.
Yeah, no, I mean, ultimately, Peter, we need to have a developmental civilization, and we need to provide people with with the tools to tame their minds and manage our limbic systems so that we can be present, and we can live with fear. And to your point, Stu, ultimately it's all about consciousness. It really is. It's about consciousness, and it's the choice between love and fear. And those in power don't really want us to figure out the neurological hack that spiritual traditions provide to help us transcend the fight or flight response in our limbic system. I mean, we're predated creatures. You know, we don't have fangs and we don't have claws, and we are walking danger detectors. We're like horses. We have very, very sensitive limbic systems that are easily triggered. And we need to empower humanity with the tools to transcend or make friends with or live with our limbic system, so that we can get back to center when our sensitivity to danger gets triggered, so that we can abide in the heart and sense and respond to reality rather than react to it out of fear.
There's really a shift beyond duality, John. Our duality is love and fear.
Yeah.
And our world is filled with fear. And in the duality, you can't hold the love side. The love side is too subtle. Look at the news, we're into fear.
Yeah.
And we're into money, we're into insecurity, we're into desires, we're into selfishness. But there is a shift, because consciousness itself is love. It is not love and fear.
No.
And the shift that happens is we shift to consciousness. Everything else is just a change of beliefs.
Yeah.
It's not any big deal.
Well,
Dr. Param, you said Dr. Param
I was a
had
Buddhist for
question.
20, 30 years of practice, and they told me maybe in 20 lifetimes I would be able to have consciousness. You know, it was a time thing. Quantum mechanics says it's now.
Yeah.
And so we need to take a look at that we can make this shift in our minds. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
That close.
Yeah.
I know Dr. Param wanted to come.
So yes, everyone, if folks could hang in there just a little bit longer, we're going to take Dr. Param, and then Yue had a question, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, so Dr. Param.
Yeah, just following what Professor Peter has said and what Stuart has said. If everything can be achieved, the two principles which John told, the principle of love and the principle of unity, if that can be achieved by mind, if that can be achieved by altering the mind consciousness, then it is very easy thing. But the very fact that we are not able to achieve it is precisely because the power of unity and love is above the mind or outside the realm of mind. That is where the spectrum of larger consciousness looms. Once we get to that, of course, there are processes to reach that, the meditation and the techniques. Once we reach that, then the mind easily gets influenced. Once the mind gets easily influenced, then our emotions and our senses and all the lower levels of the human nature, the five senses and its reactions, the individual and the social and the collective, they all automatically fall in place. So the trick or the strategy or the secret is to shift fundamentally into a different zone of consciousness. Otherwise, if everything can be done by the mind, by altering ideas or replacing structures and all those things, it will only be, again, a mental gymnastic. It won't reach us anywhere. That's what I feel.
Yeah, you'll just be rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Yeah.
Yue, you'll be our last commentator for today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And thank you, John, for your speech, because it's really comforting that you use the B corporation to try to change the DNA of A corporation. And as educators, we're trying to tweak that type of, like, you know, what to tell our students, in the sense that a corporation is simply a vessel to which there is competition between two interests, shareholder primacy, and then when a corporation falls into trouble, such as and fall into insolvency, then the stakeholders or the creditors would prioritize. So it's just this vessel, and whoever gains power depends on the state of the corporation, which made me think about a paper in the sense of what is your view on solvency? Because insolvency law kicks in when a corporation is in trouble, the failing the balance sheet test, or the other one, which I cannot remember at the moment. But what if corporate lawyers focus on narrative of solvency, maybe conscious solvency, to make sure that there is more integrated bookkeeping, not just profit and loss, but restoration of the environment, treating workers better, and so on and so forth, and try to have more resilience within the supply chain, because multinationals, they thrive in supply chains. I'm sorry, I'm nerding out on this, corporate speak at the moment, but these are the factors that, sustainability falls into this type of efficiency trap where some lawyers, corporate lawyers, we want to be sustainable, but we still fall into this, like you said, the matrix, and that's the efficiency trap. Because we fall back into square one, where shareholder primacy, which is a fiction, still rules. And that's basically my piece. Sorry.
Well, I think you raised a really good point, which is the interdependency of various disciplines. So I think one of the things that gives me hope is that there are various silos. There are a whole bunch of us around the world, you all included, that are working to co-create a civilization that works for all and preserves our home planet. And I was in the legal silo for a long time. If we change the DNA of the corporation, that'll change everything. And then I realized, that's a partial solution. Well, what I discovered is there are accountants that are working on multiple capital accounting systems. Mark McElroy with the multiple capital scorecard, for example, the reporting 3.0 folks in Amsterdam. Because the accounting system focuses on, what's the bottom line, we've been trained to externalize the negative costs of corporate behavior onto society and the environment. And that's the game, is not only legally, but from a fiscal perspective, you want to externalize as many of the negative costs of corporate behavior as possible onto society and the environment as you can possibly get away with. That's how you maximize profit. And so you got to change the accounting system and the legal system, and then you also have to change the economic system and the leadership system, and that leads to you educators on the call. We've got to change the professional education system, because what are we doing? We're cranking out automatons that basically don't even question the operating principles of the matrix, and they're trained to go out and be good denizens of the matrix, to go out and maximize profit. And so when you really look at it from a systems perspective, there are lots of silos. And what I'm really excited by, and this is another example of this, is we're starting to have conversations and collaboration among the various silos, which I think is very, very exciting, so that those of us that have been in our solitary silos are beginning to communicate across silos to really do the Buckminster Fuller move, which is, create an alternative reality. And that's, I think that's very exciting.
I think that's a wonderful note to end on, John, although I think this conversation could clearly go on quite a while. Thank you so much. This was, from my point, this is absolutely fascinating and so pivotal to where we need to go right now. I thought I'd mention to people, if you're not familiar with it, the Network of Spiritual Progressives has a platform plank called the Environmental and Social Responsibility Amendment, or ESRA, that actually addresses quite a few of the issues that John raised. So just a thought to look that up. So just want to thank everyone and
Next
for
call.
yes, our next call is January 16th, I believe. I'm just double
13th,
checking
I
it.
think.
Is it?
Double
Oh,
check it. I
sorry,
think it's
13th, January 13th. And it'll be with another conscious lawyer writer, Wiki Monster from Holland. And she will be talking about reimagining the courtroom. And it should be a wonderful talk as well. So
I would say one more thing. You can save the chat room by going down to the bottom and clear on your right where the three dots are in the chat room. You can click that and save it, and you'll be able to print it out.
Right. Thank you, Stu. All right, everyone. So best wishes for the holiday season and for a new year. Let's hope for a better year for all of us and for humanity. So be well all and great to be with you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
You're very welcome. It was really fun.